What could be more fun than two puppies? Well, I'll tell you, it's Christmas, and nothing says Christmas like getting big boxes in the mail like this. On this installment of You Can't Beat the Drums, I am going to install all new drum heads on my North kit, and these are all Remo Fiberskyns heads. Isn't this exciting? I'm also going to show you the drum tuner I just got and talk a little bit about that, and also discuss the importance of counting out loud. So stand by. As you can see, I replaced the snare drum with a Fiberskyns head some time ago. So now I've got to take all these heads off and replace them with the new Fiberskyns I just got from Sweetwater. Don't know if you've ever ordered from Sweetwater. They're very nice people. Prices seem very good, and best of all, every time you order something, they give you a bag of candy, which, I mean, what's that worth? Anyway, so I love the way these heads look. They sound fine, although on the weird bearing edges of these North drums, I've been told the Fiberskyns heads will sound better. So let's find out. I'm going to use this attachment here, which is for removing drum heads quickly. You can see it's a little bolt that has a drum key on one end and a straight sort of octagonal base. You can put it in your drills and get these heads off way quicker than you could without this handy device. Very, very handy. Just stick it on there and do a little at a time. And then when they're all a little bit loose, you can just go like this. So much easier. Okay, so I've put all the heads on, and the way I do it is I put the heads on, tighten the lugs to a finger tight, then go around in the star pattern, one revolution each, make sure they're sort of at the same tone. Then I over tighten the head, again the star pattern, and that's like, you know, you start here and you go one turn, cross, one turn, cross, one turn, and so on. And you get the head so where it's fairly, you know, not completely in tune, but at least the tensions are similar on each one. And then, as I say, I over tighten it to get a really high pitch. That helps seat the drum. And you'll hear kind of a cracking sound usually as the glue sort of separates from the edge of the head. And then I loosen it back down again. And then my very sophisticated way of starting to tighten it again is before I tighten it, I give it a quick punch. Just kind of a rap like that. And that'll sort of loosen the head up just a little bit, and then you can proceed to tighten it. Now I have a new device I mentioned, which I'm going to demonstrate here. Got it from West Coast Drum Shop, a new drum store that opened in Bellevue recently. Really nice shop, a lot of stuff there. But here it is. It's the drum dial. Comes in a very nice plastic case with little foam insert, all the instructions and so on. And it measures the tympanic pressure, or tympanic pressure. I'm not sure if it's English. If you're in England, tympanic. If you're American, then maybe it's tympanic. Anyway, it's a little digital device I got, and it set it on this glass to calibrate it. And once it's calibrated, then you put it around the drum and it digitally measures the head tension, theoretically getting it in tune. Now I tried it on my snare drum, and the problem is that it's not quite as exact as the human ear. So it'll get it close and it kind of helps you, but for fine tuning you really have to use your ear. I'm not sure if this microphone I'm wearing is going to be sensitive enough to hear the difference, but I'll show you this in just a second once I get the drum kind of semi-tuned. Okay, I have the floor tom close. They're not exact, but they're, you know, semi close. But now I'm going to use this drum dial, and what you do is once you've put it on the glass and got it calibrated to 100, it goes to 0 when you lift it up. And there's a light you can use too, which is pretty handy, although it runs the battery down faster. But you have a little spacer thing here, little metal clip that clips onto this thing so you can keep it even distance away from the rim. So it's at 0, we set it here, we just set it down on the drum with the little spacer, and it reads 71.5. Now according to the little handy dandy chart that they include with the drum dial, a 16-inch floor tom, 16 by 16 or 16 by 18. How do you measure a north tom? And by the way, you don't have to worry about the resonant head, so that's a little bit easier. As far as time goes, you'll spend less time doing it because there is no resonant head. So I'm going to figure this is probably a 16 by 18. We'll call it that. Okay, the batter head, clear, coated, or 2-ply, as opposed to the resonant heads, all have different numbers that the drum dial people recommend you use. So I'm going to say this is a coated batter head. It's a fiber skin, so who knows if that's closer to a clear or a 2. It's not a 2-ply. 2-ply is very thick. So I would guess it's probably closer to a clear, even perhaps than a coated, although this has kind of a fake calfskin coat on it. So 77 to 82 or 78 to 93. Those are the two different ranges. I think I'll try the batter coated, so somewhere between 78 and 93. So let's start with 90 and see what that sounds like. So I'm going to loosen this until the little number, and every time you loosen it, you have to then pick it up and set it down again. And you'll see now it reads 66. So I went the wrong way, so I'll tighten it up a little bit. Here we go, it's tightening up now. And we go up to, let's see, there's 77, 78. Ooh, 90 is going to be way too tight. I can tell you that right now. So I'm going to back off that, and I'm going to say instead, I'm going to go the 77 route. I'll tune this drum to 77 all the way around. And again, we loosen it, give it a little tap, set it down again, and see what it says now. And I will tell you it says 75. So I'll tighten it just a little bit. And we'll lift it up again, set it down. 77 and a half, pretty close. So I'll tune this drum, and then I'll tune all the rest of them according to this little chart, although it doesn't go below 8-inch. I've got a couple 6s. So we'll do this. I'm not going to make you watch me because that'd be boring, even more boring than what this is. And I will be back with you shortly, and we'll see how the drum dial performs. Well, I'm back, and I've gone through just this floor tom. I decided to just do one drum at a time and see how that works between the drum dial I mentioned before, that drum tuning device. And it cost about 85 bucks, by the way. And the free tuner app that I downloaded, and it is called Drum Tune Pro. I guess that's what it's called, Drum Tune Pro. Anyway, it's kind of cool. It's got a little sound wave thing there, and you can adjust the sensitivity. You can do the single note, which I will show you. It's got a memory for your own drum set if you want to store it, and a whole bunch of other things, notes and suggested intervals, all sorts of things. Pretty interesting device. There's even a Remo sound control, tone rings and so forth. Very interesting stuff. Anyway, I'm going to go to the tuner part. Basically, you aim the microphone toward each individual lug, and you can hear how close it is. Now, remember the drum dial had said it was all in tune. It was 77 on each of these lugs, and let's hear what it is according to this thing. 161, 156, 159, 161, 162, 159, 159, 162, and 161. You can see the readout on the screen there. Kind of interesting device. So obviously it's not completely in tune. Plus, the suggested number on the floor tom, remember I said it was somewhere between 75 or 77 and 93. Well, 77 would be the lowest, I believe, and it sounds a little too high for me. That again is a Oh, I think I got to recalibrate this. If you turn this thing off for too much time, it needs to be recalibrated. So I will recalibrate it. You put it on the glass that they give you a piece of glass with this thing. So you set it on the piece of glass, and then you turn it on and off. I guess you just turn it on, and then it reads 100, and you know that it's supposedly calibrated. When I called the factory and talked to them about the fact that it seemed like it didn't tune as well as my ear, the gentleman was extremely helpful, and the customer service at this company is fantastic. So if you get one of these drum dials, you can call them, and I mean, he actually called me back. I left a message. I couldn't believe it. So kudos for their customer service. Anyways, you can see I had this thing tuned up to 77, went in the house, came back out, and now it's registering 78 on that lug, 78 on that lug. So it was 77 about half an hour ago. Now they're all reading 78. But they are reading 78, so they're supposed to be all in tune according to this machine. Now that one, yep, 78. So you can tell that this tympanic pressure doesn't tell the whole story. So this will get you close. This will probably get you closer, this microphone device, but the human ear is probably the best. I'm now going to tune it with this and see how close I can get using that, although I am going to go lower because I think this tom, that's too high. It's not the sweet spot, as they call it. So I'm going to try to find a better resonant tone for this drum and then use this app to get it closer, and then we'll hear what it sounds like. Okay, so now I have gone through this floor tom, painstakingly I might add, using this little device here that, as I mentioned, tunes the drums and shows you the frequencies. And you can see 116, so 116 hertz is the tone around the edge according to this. And when you hit it in the middle, it comes out to about 55, 54, 55, depending on how hard you hit it. What's interesting is that if you go to the little extra charts here, you can go to the frequency charts, it's called, and it shows the frequencies and what note that actually is on the scale. So at 55 hertz, this thing would be an A, right? You hit this little thing, you can hear. It sounds like an A. But if you go to the outside edges, it's actually a half step up. So it is actually A sharp. So it sounds on the edge like this, and then, I don't know if you can hear that all right, this little lapel mic. Edge of the drum, center of the drum. That's because the center of the drum is going to vibrate slower because it has more mass, and the edge will vibrate a little faster because it's tighter and there's not as much mass. So this drum sounds, I guess, pretty good at that frequency. That's its sort of sweet spot, as they say, but it's not very sweet. These North drums don't have great bearing edges, as I mentioned. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this lapel mic off for a second. Excuse me. There we go. And I'm going to connect it to the rim of this drum to see if this helps you hear the tones even better, or it might just distort beyond belief. We'll find out. But even though this device shows the frequencies on the edge to be consistent, if you listen, you will hear that they're really not. Listen. This lug here, it sounds lower. So even though that machine says it's reading accurately, my ear is telling me it's not quite perfect. So I think what we've learned here is that no matter how sophisticated the device, the human ear is still better, even when you're old and have lost a lot of it at the high end, which is what happens when you get old. Anyway, I'm going to tune all these drums now. I'm going to use the frequency chart to kind of get me started, and then I'm going to try to tune it by ear once I get the kind of sweet spot, the sweetest spot you can get with these things. And then I'm going to play a little bit to hear what they sound like with the new heads on. Okay, well, it's a few days later, and I've got the North kit tuned a little bit lower than I would like, but I want to get a little more of a rock type sound first. And this is the Fiberskyns Diplomat heads. By the way, this is my new shirt given to me by my friends John and Marcia. Don't know if you can read that, kind of funny. Anyway, so I'm going to play and I want to count out loud so you can hear the importance of counting out loud. I told my students years ago when I used to teach, back when I was in shape, that if you count out loud, you don't have to worry quite so much about what you're playing in terms of downbeat, because you'll know where the downbeat always is. And as you know, if you've watched any of my other channels, I love 7/4. So if I count really loud 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 as I'm playing, you'll see that I can do all sorts of interesting things, and yet the tempo is always there on 7. Now the tempo may speed up and slow down a little bit because I'm not the human metronome I wish I was, but you'll get the idea of counting out loud. It's really important. Count out loud whenever you're playing, whenever you're practicing, and then when you're reading charts, it becomes much easier. You'll see what I mean in just a second. By the way, I bought this fancy iRig stereo device to plug my mixer in so I could throw a few mics. They're old mics, like 40 years old, but they'll sound okay. They give you the idea of the way the drums sound. The 2 mics on the end are actually newer, but most of the mics are old Super Scope mics from like 1977 or something. Anyway, but the iRig I bought is stereo. Turns out that the Galaxy S9 Plus phone, at least from what I can tell on my research on the internet, doesn't record in stereo with external mics or ostensibly the micro USB channel input, which is what I'll be using. It only records stereo with the built-in mics, and those have that stupid limiter, so it adjusts the volume and compresses everything, which is not what I want. So I'm going to try this. It won't be stereo, I apologize for that, but the fidelity I think will be a lot better than the mics that are built into the phone. So here we go, Fiberskyns Diplomats on the North in 7/4. I'm going to start counting out loud in 7/4 just to show how counting out loud helps, but mainly just to let you hear what the toms sound like with these Fiberskyns. A lot better than they did with the remote controlled sound heads, I think. See what you think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. kinds of fun. Now I'm just going to play just for the heck of it. My excuse for mistakes today is that it's really cold here in the garage.